Ah, the 2010s. What a fascinating decade that I'm sure we all wish we were reliving through right now. Maybe, just maybe, this is because I have a hyperfixation on music compared to all other sorts of media, but music is certainly what defined that decade for me, as it was the first time I was actually able to understand the music around me without being a babbling infant. And nothing affects your musical lives like the number one hits, those songs that manage to reach the top of the charts and assert their dominance over every single song in existence for 1 week or more. And now we look back on these hits and see some as defining moments of our growth, direct snapshots of the past that will be remembered for years to come. And we see others as Hold It Against Me and Highest in the Room. But today, I thought we'd go year by year and answer the question, what was the best number one hit of each year? For the song to qualify, it has to follow two criteria. Be a number one hit and be from a year. Pretty simple. Obviously, these are all my opinions, and you're probably going to disagree with a lot of them, so just keep that in mind while you're watching. Finally, I'd like to say that I'm going in order of year, starting with 2010 and ending with 2019. The order of this list does not dictate if a song is better than the last one or not. But I will say right away that this song is absolutely better than anything else on this list. Yep, bold claim. The best number one song of the entire decade is a product of the temporary 2010 club boom made by three artists whose careers are long dead. And it's not like any of them were that amazing either. Far East Movement was pretty hit or miss, their style always boiling down to that same proto-EDM structure that only worked if the other elements let them work. Then we have Dev, who was basically just Diet Kesha. Less fun, less personality, less vocal talent, but still passable in all three regards. And the Cataracts? Who even cares? So somehow, these three wildly different acts came together and gave humanity the best gift it never deserved. I am dumbfounded. Let's start with the chorus because, let's be honest, that's the first thing everyone thinks of when they hear this song. It is one of the catchiest hooks I've ever heard, bar none, and there's a reason behind it. We start off with some very staccato notes, only for it to stretch out on that last word, and leave you in suspense until the next lyric arrives half a second later. See, not only is it cold lyrically, but it slides off the tongue fantastically, much like you're skating on ice in that regard. Then, they switch up the meter of the following line, really leaving you in a panic. Yet again, we have this rapid-fire delivery, followed by this smooth right, but this time we have no time to breathe. We're shot directly into the next line. And before you even have time to comprehend what you just heard, we get another rapid-fire line. We're back to the first line structure again, but the rhyme scheme changes, and there's an echo to fill the previously vacant silence. You're finally getting over the previous chaos when Dev hits you with the title line. It takes aspects from all three of the last lines and mashes them together flawlessly, and heads straight into the futuristic drop, which is a perfect complement to these lines. Absolutely genius structuring right here, Shakespeare would applaud. Far East Movement is amazing too, and this is coming from someone who normally can't stand that frat bro style delivery. There are a couple corny moments here, but the epic moments completely justify it. All things that the douchiest of frat bros would say, yet all lines that make me want to make out with him. It's borderline paradoxical. And I haven't even started on the wonderful production, the absolute peak of early 2010s electropop. The synths are blaring, the bass is overpowering, the claps are hyped up, everything is perfect for that clubby atmosphere, yet subtle enough for you to enjoy on casual listen. A club song that sounds as good sober as it does drunk. This song truly is a miracle. And yes, it is like a cheese stick. Don't fight me on this. Feeling so fly like a G6. 2011 was a fun year. That flashy techno focus of the charts was starting to die down, and this was probably the peak year of those early 2010 pop stars. Katy Perry, Rihanna, Gaga, all had some number one representation this year. And yet, on top of that, all of a sudden, we saw the rise of a truly great voice. Adele. Such a strong personality, such genuine emotion. It was rare to see in the mainstream, yet completely welcome. Rolling in the Deep and Someone Like You are both absolutely mesmerizing songs, and ones that trigger the feels every time they come on. But which one is better? Which one defines the greatness of 2011? Neither. This one does. Yep, I chose one of the most publicly forgotten Katy Perry number ones over two cult classics. No shame. But for real, I think we don't talk enough about how incredible this is. It's probably Katie's best hit if you just forget Hot and Cold exists for a second. Unlike Like a G6, which achieved the perfect amount of intricacy even though it probably tried to be simple, this one is gloriously simple, even though it tries to be something magnanimous. I mean, those swooping synths in the chorus, the massive amount of reverb on Katie's voice, the percussion that's mixed way too loudly, it's trying to be the grandest thing ever. But meanwhile, all it really does is fail to mask the mind-numbingly repetitive synths. It's the incredibly simple sound of a homing landmine that repeats 29 times in the same pitch on practically every stanza, only occasionally switching up. The song tries to hide it as much as possible with all these effects, to the point where you question why it was even included in the first place, but it's still incredibly noticeable. It's even in the damn bridge, which is supposed to be the vulnerable and organic part. And here is where the song stumbles across its accidental genius. Without the haywire car alarm, everything here would sound too grand, too fake, kinda like Roar if you replace the tigers with horny aliens. And yet, the synths keep it on track. Every instrument, including Katie's voice, blends fantastically with the synths, and it definitely seems like an incredible accident. Take them out, and all of a sudden you get a track that's both too empty and too full, and lacks a necessary balance. Add them back in, and all of a sudden, everything comes to life. And that is the story of how one minor detail changes your song from a 6 to a 10. Well, not minor, it's fucking everywhere, but you know what I mean. Extraterrestrial. Ah, poor Adele. In 2011, she got beaten by Katy Perry of all people. And in 2012, she was beaten by Maroon 5. No, for the record, I don't think One More Night is the best #1 hit this year, but it definitely was way overhated. I mean, a Maroon 5 song that both sounds like Adam Levine actually cares and doesn't sound overly annoying? Sign me up. I mean, sure, it was a little repetitive at times, especially with the oohs, but hey, I don't care much about repetition. Clearly. Finally, a song on this list that's good in the exact way it was trying to be good. It's trying to be a simple love ballad that really shows off Rihanna's power as a vocalist, and it does that job incredibly well. This isn't my favorite Rihanna song, not by a long shot, but there are very few tracks by her which demonstrate her talent as a singer as well as this does. And some other songs that try, like Stay, just don't hit that same emotional core for me, you know? Rihanna's voice hits that perfect dichotomy between frail and confident. When the song starts, you hear Rihanna at her most fragile and vulnerable, and her known confidence slowly builds up until it reaches its peak in that chorus. Then we hear her sort of duet with herself. Her fragile side echoing back with that shine bright like a diamond refrain, mixed with this newfound confidence brought in with the chorus. This song uses its vocal production to its advantage. Although it's insanely repetitive, it is just as captivating. Of course, although the instrumentation isn't the highlight here, it is still a positive. Admittedly a little generic with the faint synths and crashing percussion, but I think it actually suits Rihanna's voice fantastically. It's loud when it wants to be, and reserved when it wants to be, forming an interesting parallel to the vocal performance. The lyrics are kinda trash and cliched, but who cares when they sound this good, really? Rihanna was a treasure to the music industry, and I'm so happy we as a society collectively agree to remember her legacy positively. And yes, I speak in the past tense. Have you seen her net worth? Release all the Fenty products you want, I don't blame you. $2013 was a rough year, absolutely the low point of the decade. I know many people disagree with that, especially when you consider all the great sleeper hits of that year, but simply take a look at these #1s. There were 11 of them, and I'm sure giving 10 of them this spot on this list would turn me into a laughingstock. I mean, my second place for this year was fucking Thrift Shop. Not a bad song by any stretch, but like, it's Thrift Shop. So yeah, I'm going with the normie choice here. But I mean, can you blame me? This song was an absolute nuke on the pop song structure when it came out, and you'd think that would damage this song's reputation for me, but nope. It showed that Lorde knew what she was doing while a bunch of the artists who tried to emulate her style just didn't. It criticizes pop culture without making Lorde seem pretentious or above it, which, to be fair, she probably is. It's clear that she has an appreciation for that lifestyle, it's simply not for her. She thinks about living lavish, dreams about it, but she doesn't crave it, and is perfectly content living as a nobody who doesn't experience all those expensive luxuries. Now, does this come off as a tad ignorant and imply that wealth is a choice? Perhaps a little, but she was 16, I can let it slide. And of course, that message is aided by the purposefully minimalist production, never really crowding beyond some hollow claps and faded guitar tones. They really let Lorde's voice resonate, and God does it ever. Even at 16 years old, this woman can sing. Every note is enchanting. And don't even get me started on that refrain at the end of the hook. Never has a chant been so addicting. Overall, this song was absolutely fantastic from minute one, and I'm so happy that Lorde was given a pedestal so she could make even better music down the road. It's a whole nother story that she hasn't had a proper hit in so long, but you know what? I'll forgive the American public. If they make that forthcoming Lorde album an absolute bomb, I'm sensing better than melodrama levels coming up.
Let me live that fantasy.
While 2013 was the worst year for number ones, no doubt, 2014 was probably the most forgettable. Maybe it's because, when I look back on this decade, the entirety of 2014 seemed like a blur. But even now, none of these songs seem to be remembered fondly, even though they were inescapable at their peaks. Think about it, when's the last time you've heard Rude, or Timber, or even Shake It Off in a public setting? Scarily enough, I'd argue that Fancy is the most commonly remembered number one from this year, if for all the wrong reasons. And hey, I'm happy about that. I mean, any recognition for Charli XCX is good recognition. Unfortunately for these two bratty white girls flexing their at-the-time new careers, one bratty white girl flexing her pretty long career just edged them out. Of course, she is none other than... Looking back at it, for Taylor Swift standards, this was kinda a forgettable number one hit. Of course, that's still Taylor Swift standards, so that still means it's leaps and bounds above all the other ones. I feel like we as a community don't talk enough about this one. It seems like all of society kinda acknowledged it was a good but not great song and dismissed it after that. And yeah, it is only good. Again, 2014 wasn't the strongest year, but let's talk about what this song does right. It's frankly a basic melody. It's kinda annoying at first, but once you get into the groove, it lands much better. Especially if you take it as more of a satire on herself rather than a standalone song. It sounds like she's tattling herself. Baller move, to be honest. All of the lyrics here are actually amazing in retrospect. I've never seen a huge pop star respond to criticism in such a cohesive and direct manner. Most of them make a huge jackass out of themselves, Lana. But Taylor faces her breakup song stereotype head on, which, to be fair, wasn't even a substantiated criticism to begin with. Also, can we talk about that chorus for a second? It's such a basic pop structure, but Lord if it doesn't get stuck in your head. This hook just makes all the right moves to make it as catchy as possible, and her little inflections add so much. 1989 as an album has aged so well, to be honest. Most songs sound genuinely heartfelt while staying as catchy as possible. Well, most songs. So yeah, Blank Space is a good song. Not anywhere near her best though, let's be clear on that. I can name at least 10 better Taylor songs off the top of my head.
Baby, and I'll write your name.
And so we enter 2015, going from one of the least memorable years in recent memory to one of the most. This is around the time I started paying attention to music again, so a lot of these contenders have some really strong memories tied to them. Too bad most of them weren't good though. Yeah, this was another one of those years where the lesser hits proved to be of higher quality, to the point where Bad Blood was the runner-up. I just didn't use it for the transition because that's way too much Taylor in 5 minutes. Anyway, play that one Weeknd song.
I can feel my face when I'm with you.
No, the actual good Weeknd song. I feel like I constantly say this, but this is the song that's pretty much responsible for a lot of my current music preferences. It's dark and edgy, it's incredibly bass-driven, it's unbelievably catchy despite following a basic pop structure, and it's loud. I bet the last thing you were expecting from this entry was a 100 gecs comparison, but here we are. Nah, but this is genuinely fantastic. It's rare to see a hit song utilize its atmosphere to its full potential, but the reverb-heavy and claustrophobic vibe created by the production here is perfect to represent the drug-abused, sex-heavy anguish that Abel feels, especially with his compressed vocals in the chorus. Random statement, but Abel sounds so good. That hook, while incredibly special, is mostly great for its effects and intensity, but this bridge is great solely because of him. There's no other artist that could fill his shoes to make it sound as magical as it does. That's not to undermine the instrumentation here though, because good lord it does some carrying. It doesn't feel as loud now, since practically every hit song now has its bass loudly mixed, but at the time, this was overpowering, almost suffocating, and it seemed like everything else in the mix played way too gradually in comparison, creating this feeling like you're moving in slow motion through a tragedy, much like The Weeknd in the video. The guy is great at making homages to old genres, but I think this song is the main evidence that he's just as capable of creating his own trends, and really cemented him as a powerhouse in the industry. Also, of course my emotionally stunted ass loves this. I mean, come on. I've had some pretty controversial and downright wrong opinions in this video so far, but I'm telling you right now, this one's the worst. I've seen people slowly come around to it, but as far as I'm aware, this song is still readily despised by many, and I'm not gonna say I don't understand why. Here we go. Take it away, Andrew.
So baby, pull me closer in the backseat of your Rover.
Don't click off, please. Give me a sec. Closer is such an interesting song. You take these two artists who are fairly devoid of personality and create something that's also fairly devoid of personality, but somehow good? There's nothing here that feels authentic, but in a way, I kinda like how manufactured it seems. Starting with the lyrics, you'd expect a generic love song to be filled to the brim with platitudes, but these are some unconventional metaphors.
So baby, pull me closer in the backseat of your Rover.
A Range Rover, I get it was mostly for the rhyme, but not exactly the most romantic vehicle. I mean, it works, it's just not the first pick to come to mind.
Stay and play that Blink-182 song.
I mean, Blink-182 is one of the last groups I think of when it comes to young dumb romance, but considering Halsey's entire aesthetic is I'm not like other girls, I think it vaguely fits. He can't stop what exactly? There's never really an indication, it just feels like a random lyric interjected out of nowhere. And honestly, the whole song is like this. A bunch of lyrics that shouldn't work at all but somehow barely do when you look at it from a certain angle. Hell, it's not solely the lyrics either, just listen to the damn drop. One of the most lazy drops ever, it's like 3 notes, but it still functions so well. This song's success is definitely one of the main culprits for mainstream EDM getting neutered, but it kinda gives off a homely DIY feeling, unlike other drops which just have no function whatsoever. And plus, these two aren't really the first two that come to mind when I think of a duet. New Americana Girl meets producer guy who's never sung professionally before. It shouldn't work whatsoever. So yeah, if you see this as a regular pop song, it fucking blows. It's the worst possible combination of every element. But if you look at it from a very, very, very specific angle, this transforms into some alternative love story from a different dimension, so much stranger than the other duets that become smash hits. And of course it's catchy. You know, that always helps.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car.
The worst singer in the world couldn't destroy that melody. Hell, he tried and he still couldn't do it. It's catchy no matter how you look at it. And also, looking back at it in 2020, it's just interesting to see a song so positive, even if it is mostly fake, wedged in a time of moody and melancholy garbage. Of course, I still adore that garbage, but I appreciate a deviation from the norm. Add that on to the fact that this song was the sole reason for both artists involved to drastically sink in quality moving forward, and I think that rounds it out. Oh well, at least one of them became a better person. A song that shouldn't work, but somehow does. God, we're seeing way too many of these. 2010 was easily my favorite year for music of the decade, but 2017 was the most enjoyable to live through. Probably because I wasn't 9 at the time, but you know. This was the absolute peak of trap. It seems every song at least drew some inspiration from the genre, and I wouldn't have it any other way. There were some truly awful songs to reach the charts, but some truly amazing ones to balance it out too. So, rather than talk about the traditionally good ones, let's talk about Bodak Yellow.
That little bitch, you can fuck with me if you wanted to. These expensive.
Cardi B is such a strange phenomenon. Originally, she was a breath of fresh air, a symbol that females can become popular in a male-dominated genre, and her breakout did lead to a lot of other female rappers quickly gaining popularity for the years to follow. On the other hand, she hasn't made anything even close to this quality since 2017, and she's basically shunned from the public eye, debatably even worse than Iggy was. It sucks too, because even though she had some of her own incidents, she was simultaneously hilarious and real. Plus, there are other acts that have had way worse controversies than her and got off relatively scot-free. But this isn't a celebrity ranking, this is a song ranking, and oh my god, she delivers here.
And I pay my mama bills. I ain't got no time to chill.
I know this isn't technically her flow, but let's keep it 100%. She uses it way better than Kodak ever did. Every line is sticky and brimming with charisma. She could be rapping the lines of 1-800 and it would still get stuck in your head. And it's a good thing too, because the lyrics here aren't the best.
I don't bother with these hoes. Don't let these hoes bother me.
You see, it's a bar, because she doesn't bother with the people who put her down, and she's not gonna be bothered by them either, even though these two lines have relatively the same meaning. Oh well, whatever, still slaps. But seriously, there isn't a second of this song where Cardi isn't giving full energy, and that's why I love it so much. No half-assing it, no time to breathe, it's just her spitting line after line, and it seriously never gets old. Then there's a beat, which in any other circumstance would be the laziest thing ever, but Cardi actually sets it straight. It's the same melody throughout the entire song. It never ceases for a second, and if it was given to a lifeless performer, it would get so grating. But Cardi uses it to her advantage. It sounds less like a disturbance and more like an attribute, one that Cardi uses to keep the song consistent, and simultaneously give it more energy as it goes along. Not to mention, it's a perfect dance song. Not that I would know. This was just such an incredible cornerstone in music history, and it does feel like a shame that Cardi's reputation sunk hard after this, because otherwise, I'm sure this would be remembered more fondly.
I make bloody moves.
Before I start this entry, I would just like to give an honorable mention to This Is America. It's a song that I expected to age really fast, but it's proving more culturally relevant than ever, especially with the current protests. Even though it's not my favorite protest song, I am happy it's basically become the music of the movement, and its cultural importance cannot be denied. If you haven't already, or even if you have, please continue to donate. There will be links in the description. If you're not financially capable, at the very least sign some petitions, educate yourself on the movement, and continue spreading the word of police brutality. It's the least we can do to honor the victims like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many more. Now, back to dumb pop music. I'm just really quickly gonna... yeah. This is probably the biggest, and possibly only example on this list of a song with a singer that's entirely replaceable. I'm not convinced that Camila can deliver this better than other Latina artists like Shakira or even Becky G. Granted, this is a career best performance for her, mostly because it's Camila at her least grating. But, like with Closer, even the worst vocalist in the world couldn't ruin that melody. I mean, listen to it. What a stunning vocal melody. It's gotten stuck in my head more times than I like to admit. There are all these little touches to just augment this song's catchiness, which is very clearly its strongest suit. The chanting melody in the verses make it sound less like a performance and more like a conversation, like it's a whole posse delivering the story about a bad boy. The producers are a godsend for editing Camila's voice beyond recognizability there, because any less processing and the song would have been ruined with one sour note. She even goes off note at one point and it still sounds magical. And then there's Young Thug. He's good. Not the ideal choice for a song like this, but it works a lot better than you'd expect. There's something about how his slurred rapping meshes with this clean beat that makes him just melt into the song, and you can't help but be lost in the experience. But all of that only makes a good song. How do you make it great? You add an unnecessary yet completely welcome trumpet solo. I mean, the song could have ended fine without it, just another 2.5-minute pop song, but then it would have lost that extra flair that this solo provides. Especially the way it transitions into the final chorus, it's just so pleasing to the ear in my opinion. And in a year with 4 Drake #1s and Girls Like You dominating for weeks on end, we needed some of this genuine energy to shake up the charts. Sicko Mode slaps though. And so, we've come to the end of the decade, and what a year to end it off too. No offense, but I feel like it's easier than ever for songs to just snag the #1 spot away, and this isn't an insult either. 16 songs hit #1 in 2019, and I only actively dislike 3 of them. But anyway, the #1 spot seems to switch around now more than ever, ignoring the one big exception that broke the record for longest time spent up there. Taking the time to build up steam on radio doesn't matter as much anymore, and immediate streams make such a large impact. This is why we see so many songs hit the top and sputter out immediately after. But anyway, rant aside, this spot for Best of the Year had so many contenders. There is the aforementioned Old Town Road, which I could describe for its inevitably long-lasting legacy. There are two fantastic Ariana songs, one less controversial than the other, that I could use to talk about traditional pop singers in the modern era. There's Truth Hurts, which I could use to talk about new pop singers in the modern era. There's All I Want for Christmas, which I could just talk about for the lulz. There's two fantastic Post Malone songs, like actually fantastic this time. But at the end of the day, even though there was a lot of competition, I knew who this spot would go to. There was very little debate, if any. Well, take it away, Billy.
So you're a tough guy, like you really rough guy, just can't get enough.
Let's get the obvious out of the way. This is very clearly bottom tier for Billie, and I could literally name at least 15 of her songs better than this off the top of my head. Now that that's out of the way, this is still incredible. Yeah, the seducing your dad line may come off a little bit disturbing, but this is spiders in her mouth chick. I'm pretty sure disturbing is the point. Continually, this song's all about one-upping this bad boy stereotype, and questionable lines like these only further drive that point home. And honestly, it's hard for me to even get too disturbed at this. The production is way too bouncy and upbeat for me to be disgusted by any of the lyrical content. That's not a complaint, by the way. Some of Billie's best songs are upbeat, and anything darker than this would have just ruined the mood.
Bruises on both my knees for you.
It's an insanely catchy bass line, some very tense snapping, but all that buildup is dissipated with the drop. Right before the tension of the pre-chorus really disturbs the listener, your mind's immediately distracted by Billie goofily saying duh, and a zany melody that you'd find in some Plants vs. Zombies game. Wait. Rinse and repeat, the second verse comes around, and any lingering feelings of disturbance you had have pretty much disappeared. It's all expected this time around. The second chorus ends, some pretty minor additions occur, and then it ends. An upbeat song that directly diverts your expectations, but is nonetheless satisfying at its conclusion. Until you sink into the depths of hell, that is. No matter how many times I listen to this ending, it never ceases to terrify me. She reuses the same elements she used the whole song, but rearranges them in a frankly petrifying manner. That bass that used to be so bouncy and friendly becomes isolated and daunting. Billie's tough guy persona transforms from being played for laughs to genuinely creepy, and those additions from the second drop return, more hauntingly than ever. Some rattling hi-hats are included this time around too, only to up the fear factor even more. It worked. And honestly, as scary as it is, it's an even more satisfying conclusion to the track. The disturbing atmosphere that was only foreshadowed through the lyrics comes into full effect here, and it's really interesting how they basically made a deconstructed remix of the song, the end of that very same song. Of course, this song was played on radios everywhere, so only listeners who really paid attention would have noticed the undertones of genuine toughness and absolute fear without that outro, but it's all laid bare when it's included. This may represent the social zeitgeist by including a seemingly happy-go-lucky exterior with a... And there you go, my favorite #1 hits over the years. It was really weird to go back through every hit and see how much it's aged or, for the more recent ones, how little. But I think we all learned a valuable lesson here. Pop music is dumb, and I care way too much about it. Also, like, if I was to rank all the hits, this would probably be the top 10. Like, not set in stone, but something like this. Yeah, you get the point. Well, I think that's as solid of an ending as any, so I bid adieu. Depending on the feedback of this video, I may have to torture myself and make a worse list too, so just let me know what you thought, and any constructive criticism will be very helpful. Thank you very much for watching, this has been Plasma Palace, and I'll see you next time. If my channel isn't deleted from copyright by then.